next topic that comes our way is, it's like creating a new strategy in equity compensation. What is in the years to come, what we may see as a market practice. Uh, the title is Broad-Based Employee Stock Schemes, a compelling concept with implementation challenges. And no other person better than Jalaj to take this up. I think with his experience of 15 years, I'm sure he would give us greater insights into this topic. So I would like to welcome Jalaj on the stage to take this forward.
Hello, everyone. I hope my voice carries to the back of the room. Okay, good. So, just presenting Jalaj to you. When my name was referred so many times, so wondering, you must be thinking who's Jalaj. So, this is me. I spent major part of my career into equity compensation. Joined ESOP Direct in 2010. Started off with the consulting practice and then moved into business development. Now, I'm going to cover employee coverage as a decision point, which is one of the primary question which comes across, boardrooms. It comes across private discussions. It comes across, promoters' evaluation as to who we should be covering. And I'm also intrigued a lot with these questions, so I thought that this would be a good setting to cover, this topic. So, rise of ESOP. So, there has been a phenomenal growth in the equity compensation. Just a quick recap over there. As far as listed companies are considered, we have almost 850 companies who have granted stock options. Roughly around 40% of the listed companies on NSE. In terms of unlisted companies, we have got 10,000 plus companies who have issued stock options. Out of that, 5,000 would be funded entities. In terms of the value and the potential of stock options, we are looking at, somewhere close to, 5 lakh crore, which is, $40 billion. The number of ESOP holders in India is 800K. So we are going to, discuss that in a context. Vishnu spoke about 1.7 billion. So that's the 14,000 crore liquidity in unlisted company that we have seen in the last, 5 years. And the ESOP pool reserve being, 0 to 10%. So that's the median ESOP pool observation. So where this is used, it's sector agnostic. We are seeing this being used across all sectors, whether this is manufacturing, pharma, auto, FMCG, SaaS, fintech, banks, AMCs. So all sectors have shown, this implementation of their ESOPs as a part of their compensation plans. So from the survey that we do, on a yearly basis, the top 3 reasons for implementation of ESOPs are retention and attraction of talent, reward for performance, and wealth sharing and ownership alignment. So these are the top 3 reasons. We know about this. Going to the top influences. So why this phenomenal rise in the last, let's say, 5 to 8 years? So startup culture. We have almost 115 unicorns, roughly 30 to $40 billion of funding at an annual level, which expected to grow to 80 billion at an annual level. Market capitalization at a $5 trillion dollar market capitalization, out of which $1 trillion got added in the last 6-7 months, and also aspiration from the top management, especially to have some part in the value through equity plans. So these are the 3 top influences which I see. At this point, I want to just take a quick poll. just raise your hand who have implemented stock options plan in their company. Okay. So it's roughly 60% of the audience. And how many of them have broad-based programs? By broad-based programs, I mean the plans which covers around 30% plus employee strength in the company. Yeah, so that is roughly 5%, I would say, of the total audience. So this is what it's intriguing. This is where the dilemma is, that why we are is- we are focusing this towards senior management. Why this is not getting broad base, and that trend continues to remain in the last 10 to 15 years. We have not seen much of a change. So in this session, we are going to sort of evaluate it. Number of ESOP holders in India, 800,000. But if you see this in the context of the total workforce in the organized sector, this is less than 10%. So moving on, this is again from our survey. So in the listed companies, we are seeing that most of the respondents, the response was that they are covering up to 10% of the employee strength. In case of unlisted companies, though the trend is picking up, where from 58% it has gone down to 42%, whereas from 11 to 20% it has gone up from 9 to 17%. So what we see here is in unlisted companies, this is actually on a rising trend, whereas listed companies is less than 10%. Okay, so let us go to the more developed economies, what they are doing. So in terms of the global practice, typically broad-based coverage, which is like 30% plus, is what is commonly observed. Along with this propensity for covering more employees within the company, there is also preferential tax treatment, which comes through the government and the regulators to promote and encourage broad-based employee ownership. US has a very unique employee stock options. I mean, it's employee ownership trust, where they are granted preferential treatment. The companies saves tax through these trusts. So these trusts basically represent employees' interest. They are also funding which is available to these trusts to buy shares from the company, and promoters use this as a vehicle to also plan their succession planning. I think when Gabby will talk about, she might touch on these things. Another type of plan is employee share purchase plan, where the median participation is 37% across. So this is again the plan which we don't see much of in India. In the UK, there is a unique plan where the contribution is done by employees on a monthly level. This is deposited. There is interest component to this deposit also. And they get preferential treatment. Their interest incomes are exempted, and is also some preferential tax treatment at the time of when they sell these shares. So this is the global practice. So conversely, India and US, we are not matching each other. Now this is where the gap is. That on one side we are saying 10%, and on the other side it is more than 30%. And then there are vehicles like Employer Stock Ownership Trust and ESPP's program, which are missing in India. Let's try to identify what is the reason. And this is from my last with my experience of 14 years. This is what people will say. Equity plan should be focused for senior management. Okay. Retention is more critical at the senior levels. And why this is more important at the senior level? Because they are the ones who are responsible for the operating performance. They are the ones who have direct line of sight to the business. Dilution concern for this for the shareholders, which means that if I expand more, my dilution will increase. Also, if I am granting to more employees, it will become thin at the individual level because the pool with a given pool. This will result into a thin, distribution. So that's again a concern raised. Junior levels will prefer cash over equity. They will have preference. They will not understand a long-term instrument. ESOPs are, too complex for them. Market volatility in long vesting period. So, junior employees, again, the appetite for or the patience required for a long term might not be there, and they may feel disillusioned during dips and downturns. And the long vesting period, they want immediate cash rather than waiting for a long term monetization potential under these programs. So, and the last one is the cost of the plan. So it requires substantial cost to manage because you have more employees which are covered, more letters have to be issued, more exercises will happen, more documentation to follow, the reporting, all that requires support. And along with that, communication, different levels, different understanding, which we have also seen in the previous sessions. And along with that, higher accounting cost, which will affect the EPS. Now, what all this means is, and where these discussions were happening, I don't think the employee who is in that broad-based category was having a seat in that discussion. So while we are not saying that this is wrong, this is or this is incorrect, but what we should do is we should look beyond that mindset of a LTIP. If we just have a lens of an LTIP, then you will use any of these as an argument not to do a broad-based program. So, having said that, let's move and see how companies have performed who have implemented broad-based equity ownership. Anyone from JSW Steel here in the audience? So JSW Steel, this is a steel manufacturing, one of the top 3 manufacturers, and they had 3 equity plans. They used equity vehicles of ESOPs and RSU. They have a trust route, and through the trust route, they also have this ability to buy shares from the secondary market. The pool which was set aside was around 6%. Coverage was all employees, so they granted it to everyone within the company. Different mix within the. It's not that under each program everyone was covered. They had program which covered all. There were programs which was concentrated to the C-level. Now, if we see this in the context of their share price, movement, in the last 5 years, it has grown from somewhere around 254 to 968. What does it indicate? Their CAGR growth is 30%. Now, if we compare this with the sectoral index growth, that is around 29%. And if we compare this with the Nifty, this is 15%. So they perform well. They were not outlier as far as this is considered, but at least they perform well, or they were there. It didn't seem to affect them much as far as the dilution or the costs is considered. Now, if we compare them, let's compare them with the other companies in the same sector. So there we see that their attrition, and we compare attrition, growth in revenue, and the TSR, which is this is written for the shareholders. So their attrition rate was 8.41. Their growth rate in the last 5 years, CAGR was around 19%, and their TSR, which is 5 years TSR, was around 290%. And of that, 23% was in the last 12 months. So if you see this in the sum, the broad-based coverage had a positive impact. Okay, it had a positive impact on JSW's. If you see their growth rate is 19% and Tata Steel growth rate is around 10% and their difference is somewhere around 40%. So if this trend continues in next 3 years, they will become number one in this sector. Okay? So this is one example. The second example is Persistent. Let's evaluate Persistent. Now, Persistent has 13 ESOP schemes. This is one of the companies in India which started ESOPs way back. So their first ESOP scheme came up in 1999. So it's almost 25 years, from now, when they started implementing their ESOP program. Out of these 13 schemes, there are only 2 schemes which are active. The vehicles used are ESOPs and the RSUs. Again, to control dilution, they have a trust. A trust also has shares from the secondary market purchase. The pool which is within the active schemes is around 14%, and the coverage is 63%. Around 15,000 plus employees are covered over there, give and take. Now, if you see their journey, so from 345, they moved to close to 6,000. Their CAGR is around 76%. Now, if we compare this with their sectoral index, which is Nifty IT, 24%, they outperformed it completely, and then against Nifty 50. So roughly 4 times of Nifty IT and roughly 5 times of Nifty 50. That is the growth which Persistent has. If we compare with their peers and which are in that range, so their attrition is around 11.5%, best at least in this class. They are growing by 22% on the top line growth, last 5 years CAGR. Their TSR is 1,631%, of which the contribution is 82% from the last 12 months. So what we see, they're actually outperforming at all levels, right? So the impact of this program on Persistent is in front of us. So I would like to call upon, please, we have colleagues from Persistent. Let's give them a big applause. Yeah. Okay, so we have covered manufacturing, we have covered IT. So what is left? Obviously, banks. Yes. Yeah, I mean, Federal Bank, not much talk about it. Let's see, how Federal Bank has. And the bank's stocks have been relatively stable. We have colleagues from PCB. We know that. So let's look at their program. They started in the 2010, and they also have a mix of ESOPs and RSUs. The practice was granting our ESOPs. Their ESIS 2023 is a RSU plan. They don't have a trust. It's a direct. So source is primary. The pool which is there, for these 4 schemes is around 11%, and they have given. It's all employees program. Let's look at their journey. So they have grown from 87 to 211. Their CAGR growth is 20%, whereas during the same period, Nifty Bank is 11%, CAGR growth. Nifty 50, 15%. So there they have outperformed. And this is one of the banks which has done well, and we can see this in the context of the peer comparison. So if we see Federal Bank, their attrition is just 4%. Whereas, the others, the attrition, and this is the last year's attrition, is in excess of 30%. So how this would have been possible? I mean, it was just return on investment, or this was more to it? I think this the answer which many of the speakers touched in their talks during our sessions today, and they talk about culture. So I think this is what we are seeing here as a part of their culture, where equity is playing a major role. 115% TSR, again, best in their segment. Out of that, 41% getting contributed in the last 12 months. And their growth was around 13%. Yeah. So we have seen 3 cases. My intention is not to put facts into theory. It's not my intention here. This is a study. There may be companies who may not have done well, even after doing a broad-based program. We cannot say that every companies would have the similar result. But my intention was to provoke, at least at an idea level, that this 10% thing that we have seen in last 10-15 years, this needs thinking. This needs rethinking and evaluation, whether we can consider. And there are vehicles, and I will talk about it. So, how a wider ESOP net benefits. So, pretty much we are aware of it. I mean, I don't have to speak on every point. So far as company is considered, the sense of ownership, the alignment with the company goals, performance, sustainability of that performance, long-term commitment, reducing attrition. These are the benefits which the companies will see. From an employee standpoint, there's motivation, drive towards achieving higher levels of productivity, ethical behavior, because ownership also encourages that part. Wealth creation opportunity. We know that for an employee, there are not much opportunities to opportunity to a sizable wealth. It is through your equity, financial planning, building that retirement corpus, along with that innovation and career advancement. So with the ownership or innovation, there's a close connect. Innovation actually manifests as ownership, if you really see. So that's for the employees. For the investors, we have seen in the last 3 examples, increased shareholders' returns, improvement in the corporate governance, promoting of, having that long-term vision or the perspective there, resilience in tough economic times, when entire organization coming together, not just few, ensures continuity and stability. So it's also help in situations of mergers and acquisition, where the employees, if the company has a broad-based program, there's a general feeling of that stability and that they are being relevant. From a government standpoint, I think this is where I want to spend some time. Now, this is a vehicle of inclusive growth, and ideally so. See, if we say $5 trillion is what the market capitalization of the companies, and only less than, let's say, 6%, 8% are being part of it, there is something wrong fundamental, and that is where we will have to think about and find out why this is so. And this has been there for many years, as we have seen. So from a inclusive growth standpoint, widening that net of coverage actually helps, and this is also what the government would like to do. in the PSUs, the policy is to divest uh, government stake. This can be a great tool where we have seen ESOPs trust in US. If there are preferential treatments, uh, they are promoted. I think this is a great tool to facilitate PSUs. Just selling government equity into private hands. If you put some stake into employees, that can facilitate this as well. There was talk about banks giving uh, ESOP shares, but the thinking behind was that it should be in the form of ESPP, one-time allotment, then forget about it. So I think at a structural level, studies needs to be done as to how the government can facilitate these investments using some of the tools which has worked for many years. Okay, uh, as the number of employees will grow, you will have new retail investors coming to the capital market, which also promotes its growth, further. So if you are at $5 trillion, how much time will it take to $10 trillion? Do we need to spend another 7 years? Or I mean, if this growth can happen through more retail investments, investors coming in, I think we can do it in 5 years also, or less than that. More people under tax net. So as we get border coverage, we'll have more people, and also it is going to increase the tax collection. And since the income is charged, there's a tedious component to it, so there's no administrative cost either. So for the government, I think it's with the needs to think about ways in which this can be promoted, while at I mean, as practitioners, as observers of what is happening in the industry, at our level, we do what we can do best by way of making representations, by way of writing papers. But I think it as corporates also, you have a significant role to play there, uh, making 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 petitions, prayers as to whether this sort of programs can work, and encouraging uh, that we also need some sort of a reciprocal encouragement from the government if we do cover more employees. So uh, all in all, this is the benefits part of it. If there's a question which is asked that what is required to make business successful, profitable, many of us will say skills and competencies. I mean, there's nothing wrong in it. Skills and competencies are needed, but to run a business which is profitable in the long term, I think we need to you know do better as far as its culture, value, and purpose is concerned. And it is not easy. It's not that I mean, I can write or everyone can write skills and competencies. It's very easy to write on a piece of paper, but if you want to write value, purpose, and culture on a piece of paper, it's not as easy as it appears. So I think we have to be mindful of it. Broad base employee coverage promotes culture, value, and purpose, which 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 will which we will see that the companies can use to their advantage of making their business profitable, and that too in the long term. So, what are the equity ownership vehicles which can be used for broad-based employee population? So, direct purchase plan, employee stock options, restricted stock units, stock appreciation rights. These are the direct purchase programs. Contribution co-investment plan, which is where not much action is evident. Which so employee stock purchase plan and save as you earn scheme. So these options can be evaluated. Uh, as far as mechanics of it is considered, we do direct route, trust route, primary issue from the company, or secondary market purchase. So these are the open design frameworks which we can combine with these vehicles to promote broad-based coverage. Yeah. So I think the point which I wanted to drive about broad-based coverage, hopefully, this would have sink in. The last slide talks about the key takeaways. So the first part is it should not be a random sort of a discussion around the coverage. It should be carefully thought about. So it should not be ignored. I think there's a lot to be worked in this area. Uh, Inclusive growth and the company performance you have seen is companies who have done broad-based program have a better performance, and also sharing of democratizing wealth with their employees. And from the equity mix of the vehicles that we have seen, to a extent, it can address your dilution and cost concerns, and also allow the pool to last longer. So that is what I want to leave the message with you when you're going back and sink in with this subject about the employee coverage. Whether are we doing enough justice when we are about to take that call of concentrating to senior management, or adding more employees? What vehicles are there plans which can allow us within a certain limits of dilution to promote that? I think that is the message which I want everyone to take from this session. So this is the last slide. I'll take pause any questions that you may have. Happy to uh, yeah, please go.
So, how do you measure the effectiveness of a broad-based ESOP plan vis-a-vis a limited coverage plan, which is restricted to, say, senior management? Because in your slides, we saw three examples, and all the three had very varied outcomes. Like one had industry average growth, one had a very superior growth. So, can we say these outcomes were because of the broad-based coverage plans, or it is because of industry cycles, or maybe business tailwinds or something like that? And how do we measure the effectiveness of vis-a-vis the limited coverage plan? Like profitability or maybe revenue, etc., may be determined by external business factors, or maybe operating metrics like attrition, etc., may be relevant. So, how do we measure that?
See, there are three primary forms of measuring, or metrics of measuring the success of a ESOP. What are these? One is attrition. So that is a direct. So if we have a target group, whether the attrition has reduced because of this program, that could be one metrics. The second metrics is the operating performance. So operating performance, how the company has done well. I mean, top line, margin improvement, working capital. Uh, so where does it stand? So whether the company intrinsic value has grown or not. So that is one area on the operating side, including revenue, and so that's the operating part of it. The third is the market capitalization, which is where there can be cases where the company might not have done as well as other, but there are macro factors which has lift the value. So that is the third part of it, and the fourth is the culture. So whether the culture is it's a comprehensive culture which take this organization ahead in times, is the fourth factor. Now, as far as your question is considered, is there a different matrix for measuring a program which has a wider coverage vis-a-vis if it has a limited coverage? I don't think so, because these are the largely the matrices on which we have to measure the success of the program. Now, a program, even with their companies which had a you know program only for senior management, uh, they would have also done well. It's not that they are not doing well. It's not a comparison between a plan which is short term or plan which is having a broader employee coverage. I think what we need to look at is the sustainability part of it, where I believe that companies who have a broader coverage, they have fair chance of remaining profitable for a longer term as compared to company which is just focusing towards senior management. That's what I feel about. Not much. So when we do our survey, not at this level, when we ask the question to the companies, we say that whether the objectives have been met or not. So most of these companies, the response was 90% our objectives are either met fully or partly. So when they are saying fully or partly, they are indicating to these four matrices. There's attrition, operating performance, market capitalization, and culture. So in a way, it is built in that question, but not as diversified across these metrics. Yeah. So yeah.
Hi, Jalaj. So it's very encouraging to have a broad-based scheme, and in our case also we see that it impacts employee morale to an extent, and it's also a result of how we benchmark to our peers, right? However, the problem or the challenge becomes very real when you have a limited ESOP pool and you're still granting or covering a large workforce in your pool. So how do you ensure, you touched upon in your last point of, mix of instruments, dilution impact, etc.
Yeah.
But can you elaborate on the point of how do you ensure having a healthy, portion of your ESOP pool still left for future grants to be given?
Sure. I think there's a problem on the burn rates also. If we look at listed companies, on an average, the Indian companies who have implemented ESOP programs, their burn rate are between 0.10% to 0.20% every year. So if they were to continue with this burn rate, in 5 years they are going to burn 1%, right? Which is very less. Now, if we were to just increase, let's say from 1% to 2%, in that additional 1%, you can sort out this broad-based, coverage. And when we say broad-based coverage, it's not that you just have to, step the paddle and from 10% you go to 100%. You go step by step. You go, to 15%, to 20%, to 30%, to 40%, sort of, and then, see whether you are able to manage your, the pool that you have. So you have the predictability of the pool if you are able to work out on your burn rates. How much you are going to burn every year and how long this pool will last. As far as mix or the vehicles that we have seen, they will have different dilution potential. So for example, RSUs are lesser dilutive as compared to ESOPs. SARs are lesser dilutive as compared to, ESOPs. Then we have contribution programs. So let's say an employee has to contribute 10% of his, payroll into the company for purchasing this equity at some discount, right? So that's also, building that up. You can buy it from the market if this is a, growth scenario. So there's no dilution. You're buying from the market and you're funding your, these programs. So there are, as I said, these vehicles are there which can combine into a trust or a direct or a primary or a secondary. And, if you are able to predict your burn rates with that coverage which you have in mind, I think then you are sorted with your, this pool, problem. As far as accounting is considered, if we are granting, more, obviously the cost will be higher. But we have seen these companies, growth. So the dilution in your EPS would be transitional. It will not be, because it will get offsetted by the increase in your, your operating performance, the cash you are generating in the business. It will get compensated by the increased revenues. So that way, if you see, this issue is, I think, is blown out of proportion, somewhere, that if we grant to large section, then the dilution will be, too high, which we will not be able to control. Now we have HDFC Bank. They increase it to their junior, middle to junior, and Subbalakshmi spoke of how they did it. I mean, their burn rate is somewhere around 0.7% every year. And this was before they implemented this program, this RSU plan, which is covering slightly broader as compared to what they were covering earlier. So if we are able to predict what is going to be our burn every year within the different alternatives that we have, the coverage that we want, I think we can sort this. No. I think we are not there. We are not going there. We are ignoring it at the idea level itself. Yeah.
Hi. So we are a unlisted company right now, and so we don't have a very broad-based employee stock schemes, but we've reached to the middle management level. Now, what we have seen from the data is that most of those middle management people have kind of sold their shares in the gray market. So the entire idea of covering them from wealth creation perspective is defeated. So what's your view in terms of then having a broad-based employee stock option scheme, which covers the junior management, but because they do not have that capacity to buy maybe, or the company is not also able to say give them funding options. So the broad-based employee schemes maybe do not work in such scenarios. Is what our the data showed for us.
Okay. After how many years the employee got this liquidity in the grey market from the time of inception of the?
See, at the time of inception,
What was the gap in terms of the period? So when you implemented the program and when the employees are selling it in the grey market, what is the period?
so you can say around 7 years
Yes.
or so. But again, we tried to cover till middle management way later. So initially, it was not at that penetration level. It was only limited to the senior management. But as we moved, after say 7 years, we reached out to the middle management.
See, as far as if you're saying this in the context of retention, right? Because they are selling.
No, it's more of wealth creation that we're talking about.
Yes. So, well, that's what I'm saying. 7 years, let's say median 4 years, let's say 5 years was the median period between the options granted. It's still a high period for the stock options to seek some amount of monetization. Now, in this case, you are a public company, public unlisted company.
Yeah.
You are a public, your shares are traded in the grey market. It's
Yeah. We have.
okay. Okay. And you didn't build restrictive clauses in your scheme?
No, we don't have. We allow people to sell in the grey market.
You allow people to sell in the grey market.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, see, I think in your case, the period from grant to monetization, if you're saying 7 years and then 5 years, let's say take a median, it's not very abnormal for the employees to seek liquidity. And if they find a way through grey market or secondary market, it's not abnormal as such. Now, to your point that this wealth creation could have been far more higher if you have taken this company or they have waited for the company to go for the market and ring the bell. So in such a case, I think the communication also has a larger role to play. If they have sold the entire 100%, that could be a wrong decision on the part of the employees. Whether they understood if you are hitting the market, let's say in the next 2 to 3 years, and what they have earned, the return in this case would be like 3x, 4x of what they have earned in the grey market. I think the employees at a loss. So this could be properly communicated with the employees if such an option is available. But the fundamental cause of employees selling it in the market was because of the liquidity that they were seeking. They could have ideally sold a small percentage of their shares in the grey market to get some liquidity. That's not wrong. That's also is a way to put some seed capital back into your your investment, the other financial planning that you are doing, and you are liquidating, and wait for the big bang for the the event which is happening later on. So I think the communication could have played larger role. There are companies which are large companies where their shares are traded in the grey market. So it's not that there are not large organizations who are not doing it or their employees are not selling it, but employees, they have a some sort of a waiting period. If they find an opportunity, they may opt for it. If they see that this is an offer, they may go for that offer and as a company, I mean, if you are allowing it, then we don't have much of control over it.
Yeah, as in fact, we had to stop it, from the current year onwards, because anyways we saw that people are not holding the shares for a longer
Yes.
period of time, so there's no point in giving stock options to them.
That's a perception. Actually, that's a perception on the employee. There would be still some employees. Suppose you are holding on to your option because your perception is that I'll wait for the IPO or the listing, and that's where I will make most of the gains. But if I'm your colleague and I have a different perception, and there's a buyer outside, I may sell my equity, and your company has allowed it. So this can be, as I'm saying, this can be handled. This is a financial decision. This is a decision which the employee is taking to decide whether to retain or to sell. The best post there could be that he sells. If he has to sell and monetize some part, then do it in not the entire lot, do it in some parts. Okay, so yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Jalaj. Lot of learning curve in this session for everyone around. I think for even us as practitioners, lot of new facts put down by Jalaj. So thank you for those 3 company analysis, Jalaj.